Now, support for the far-right AfD doubled in this election, and most of it came from the former East Germany, where deep divisions remain nearly 35 years after German reunification. DW's Alex Gerst went to Frankfurt, Oder, on the border with Poland, to find out why.
With this election, the far-right AfD has cemented its position as a force to be reckoned with. It has almost doubled its vote in 4 years. Its success, shown by the stark divide on this map, is down to strong support across almost all of Eastern Germany. With its anti-migrant rhetoric and talk of closing borders, the party flipped many districts from the center-left to the far-right. Like here in the city of Frankfurt Oder, where people are trying to make sense of the huge AfD gains.
I don't understand it. Maybe it's because of my age or it's the youth. Didn't they get an education at home?
I don't think it's good, because they have gained quite a lot. It's a mystery to me.
Others weren't surprised.
No, I wasn't. It was quite clear. The AfD were the only ones campaigning the whole time. Where were the other parties?
I think it's very, very good. I actually voted for the AfD myself. To be honest, all these foreigners are really annoying. Frankfurt Oder just isn't what it used to be.
Migrants here were reluctant to talk to us about their concerns over growing xenophobic sentiment in the region. Newly elected AfD lawmaker Rainer Galler said his party had responded to voter frustration, while he said other parties carried on pushing unpopular policies.
We noticed more and more at campaign stands that people don't want the other parties dictating how they should think, how they should talk, what they should eat, what kind of heating system they should use, what car they drive. They want policies made by German politicians for Germany.
But for Jürgen Neyer, a political scientist at the city's university, the surge of the far right is just part of a wider global trend.
Politics is moving towards the extreme, and one explanation for that is that what holds the middle together, what did hold it together, was the promise of the open society, of the welfare state, of capitalism being somehow tamed by social redistribution mechanism. And that promise no longer holds true for a lot of people. There's many people, I think, who are disappointed.
Germany's next conservative-led government needs to deliver the change many are calling for, if it wants to bring voters back from the fringes.
Thorsten Faas is a professor of political science at the Free University here in Berlin. Welcome to DW. So we're seeing the Alternative for Germany, the AfD, it doubled its share of the vote, most of its support coming from the former East Germany. Do you see that happening in the western areas of Germany as well?
In fact, we do see it in Western Germany as well. I mean, there are other divides that we should keep in mind here. There's a urban versus rural divide, and we see that the support for the AfD is especially strong in rural areas. We see that the AfD polls strongly among young men, especially young men with rather low levels of formal education. So it's not only an East-West thing here, it's more the fact that this social structure of East German society resembles these factors that I mentioned maybe more closely than that is the case all over West Germany. But it would be too easy to attribute the success of the AfD just to East Germany. They have very strong results in some parts of Western Germany as well.
Mm-hmm. The AfD's focus is migration. So would you say that the German electorate is hardening its attitudes towards migration?
Well, actually, there are some longitudinal studies that show that the attitudes per se are pretty stable over the course, let's say, for the last 10 years. But what has changed is the salience of the topic, the salience of migration. And along with this change of salience, we see that the AfD benefits from that. If the campaign, if the agenda is dominated by migration as an issue, that kind of activates competence attributions in people's minds that are then actually linked to the AfD. So I would say it's not so much the positions that have changed, but really the importance of the issue. And along with this importance, the AfD benefits from that because a lot of voters actually see the party as competent when it comes to questions of migration.
The AfD was able to mobilize support from almost 2 million people who didn't vote in the last election. How do you think they tapped into these voters?
Well, turnout generally has increased significantly. We have seen a turnout rate of more than 80%. We haven't seen that for quite a while. So all the parties actually managed to mobilize voters. But it's true that populist voters, this is true for the AfD, but also on the left-hand side for the BSW, the Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, they are especially successful in mobilizing former non-voters. Apparently, the other parties do not really reach them in the same way. They do not really communicate with them in the same way that is successful in the way that people feel seen. That's kind of the reason of success for these populist parties. They kind of give a feeling to voters that they really care about them, that they see them, that they respect them. And apparently that mobilizes these former non-voters to actually turn out to vote. At least they have done so in this election on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. One surprise in this election was the upturn in support for the left party, the socialist left. What do you think is driving that?
Well, voting behavior has become much more volatile. And so whatever party manages to run a good, successful campaign also fares much better on election day. And what the left party really has achieved is a very targeted campaign. They had one front runner that's very, very successful on social media, especially on TikTok. They had a huge door-to-door campaign that they ran, but they also had some older candidates that would target rather older parts of the electorate. So really the campaign managed to target very different segments of the electorate in a very successful way, and there was a lot of momentum in the closing of the campaign. So the party actually doubled its share when we look at the polls from 3-4% now to almost 9%. So clearly a successful campaign that they ran in very different forums and very different modes. So overall a targeted campaign that turned out to be very successful.
Thorsten Faas from the Free University of Berlin. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.